Hello YouTube, let's talk about cardio today. Cardio is a very important part of bodybuilding, both from a cultural standpoint and from a performance slash aesthetic perspective. And a lot of people cannot perceive a world where one could exist without doing cardio to some extent. And I am personally quite divergent in that aspect because I don't do cardio. Or at least I don't do it the way most people do. So I'm going to expose my thoughts about it. I'm going to explain my reasoning behind the fact that I'm not actually engaging in something that is actually quite beneficial. But before that, I want to define the term because I think semantics are very important. So what is cardio exactly? It can be understood two ways. One, it can be the action of pumping up your cardiovascular system, or it can be any activities that are going to be related to that tend to become their own thing and their own trend. Okay, so you have something that every single human does, which is putting some strain on the heart so that the heart has to work, and the actions that we humans are going to engage in to make that happen. As far as should you be doing cardio and train your heart, the answer is yes. But if you're training, you're already doing that, meaning that to some extent, you are already engaging in that activity. Besides that, should you be doing something specific to promote that value? I think the answer is also yes. But depending on what you want to accomplish with your fitness goals, the way you're going to do that is going to be widely different. I'm going to only talk about a bodybuilding perspective here. So for someone who wants to get bigger, who wants to get more shredded, and who only trains for looks, you will try to stay as specific as possible no matter what you do. So if you train for football, you better do some form of cardio that is going to consist of you running, because that's what you do on the field, you run. So if you play basketball, if you play any type of sport where you have to move the body through space, you need to look at the way the body moves through space, and you need to apply that to your cardio, because this is when the cardio is going to be important. And that is also, in my opinion, a subcategory of what cardio is, where you have cardio for performance and you have cardio for health. Cardio for health is going to be important for your everyday life, and cardio for performance is going to be important for your practice of the sport. And they sometimes go hand in hand, meaning that if you have a very good cardio for your sport, it's going to carry over. The reason why I don't want to talk too much about the health perspective is because a lot of that also comes to diet, to your lifestyle, how clean your lifestyle is. You can have a pretty good cardio, meaning that you can have a lot of cardiovascular stamina, but your cardiovascular health can be quite bad. And there is a level of contingency between the two, meaning that if you smoke 15 packs of cigarettes a day, most likely you don't have a lot of cardiovascular endurance, and that also means that your cardiovascular health is terrible. But it's not always the case, so be careful with that. So I'm going to leave that on the side. I'm just going to talk about performance. If you're a bodybuilder, what is the point of cardio? The point of cardio is to create a level of cardiovascular endurance that is so high that you're never limited by it. This is absolutely key. In my opinion, until you've built that level of resistance, your ability to train the muscle is highly limited, because if you've ever been in a position where you had to stop a set of squats or of deadlifts because you were out of breath, that was your cardiovascular endurance limiting you. It wasn't your muscular endurance, it wasn't your structural integrity, it was simply the fact that your heart and lungs could not handle the load and you had to stop. You never want that to happen. If you're the type of person that has that happen to them a lot, you need to do something about it. You need to work on your work capacity in relation to your cardiovascular endurance, because, and I'll make a video about it, work capacity is ability to handle volume intra-workout and outside of the workout for the weekly frequency, and the ability of the cardiovascular system to handle the load. As far as cardiovascular system goes, it only really is relevant within the workout, because it's a system that doesn't really require a lot of recovery in between sessions, so day to day, in a sense, meaning that you rarely hear people say, oh, I ran today, so I can't run tomorrow because I'll be out of breath from today. The ability of your body to recuperate the oxygen that you use is quite high. It's much higher than the ability of the body to actually rebuild muscle. So you don't have to worry about that. But as long as this stays an issue, you are going to be limited in terms of hypertrophy because you're already going to be limited by the recovery of the muscles when it comes to building them. So if on top of that you slap the fact that you can barely breathe after a set of 5 squats, you have an issue that needs to be solved. And I will make a completely different video on how to build work capacity. But to get back to cardio, what will a bodybuilder do to build cardio? A lot of bodybuilders are going to be doing treadmill, they're going to be doing some steppers or some sort of light exercise that is going to include moving the body. And I personally think that this might not be the best action to undertake, because there's another branching out here where some people do cardio to burn calories and some people do cardio just to build cardiovascular system and endurance. And I'm just here, I'm just number one. I personally never do cardio to build calories because I don't have a use for it. And you need to understand that an action that is going to build to burn calories, that is going to be highly intensive on your cardiovascular system, has the properties of using energy and building the cardiovascular system. It does both. Okay, whether you want it or not, it does both. So for someone like me who doesn't really need to burn those extra calories because I have a low appetite to start with, I'm left in a situation where if I were to do that, sure, I would build the cardiovascular system, but I would also lose calories that I would then struggle to regain in a sense. Whereas if I did something different, that was not as intensive on the caloric intakes of my body, but still built the cardiovascular system, I'm going to go with the first one, which is why I personally don't do treadmill or things like this, and I don't include cardio in my training. You will never see an hour of squat and then 30 minutes of cardio. And that's the classical scheme. That's what most people do. And I'm not saying it's bad. I am saying, however, that it can sometimes represent a waste of time. It is sometimes not specific to your sport, and you could be doing something better, both in terms of time economy and in terms of applying specificity to your training. So just to quickly end with that, if you are the type of person who likes to do your cardio separately to your weight training, I highly encourage you to do steppers or jump ropes. If you're going to do something within the gym, don't do the treadmill. The treadmill is a subpar version of running, and running by itself, jogging, is already not that great for cardio. So don't do that. Do the step machine that is going to build your calves. It's going to also help with developing the posterior chain. If you really need to do the treadmill, you can do it on an incline because that's also going to help you develop the posterior chain, or you can do some jump ropes. That's also very good. But that to me is still bottom tier. Remember that that's subjective, but for me, if you're going to do something like cardio, you're going to open up your lungs and breathe, do it outside. You can go for a run outside, and if you decide to run outside, never run on stone or pavement or what is the name of that thing? The street. It's going to damage your knees. Run on dirt roads, run on leaves if you can, run on the grass, run on the beach. If you have a beach next to you, you're blessed. Go run on that beach. It's going to kill you. And what I highly suggest is high intensity cardio, meaning that jogging is fine and all, but the best way to burn calories and build a cardiovascular system is going to be what is called fartlek. And fartlek is an alternance of sprints and light jogging. So you're going to sprint for 10 seconds, or 8 seconds, or 5 seconds, depending on what you want. And then you're going to jog. And you might jog for a minute. And then you sprint again. And you keep doing that until you're burned. This is going to be incredibly time effective. It's going to copy the way your cardiovascular system is going to be hurt by lifting heavy weights. And it's going to just, in my opinion, be better overall. That's top tier. When it comes to what I do, I personally do that. And I like to shovel snow in the winter, and in the summer I go for very long hikes in the mountains at a very high pace. Basically everything I do for me when it comes to cardio is mostly go outside, move the body in nature, just so that I'm just not lifting weights. I can actually sense that my body is working and responding properly. And to me, it's more of a test. It's more of a way to see if my cardiovascular system and endurance is still as strong as it used to be, because I used to train for football, I used to train for basketball, and 80% of my training was running. I would run in the mountains, I would sprint up hills, I would do the fartlek on the beach as I've described. I was a massively endurance athlete. I wasn't much of anything else, but my endurance was really up there. And I find that I maintain that endurance. It's still there. So for me, when I do my cardio, when I go out and I shovel a plot of land for 15 minutes nonstop, it's just a nice way for me to see that it's still there. I still have that ability. But I don't do that to build it anymore because, and that's sort of the answer to people who ask, if you don't do cardio, what do you do? I do giant sets because health and longevity is primordial for bodybuilding. There's no point in bodybuilding and then when you're 35, your body falls apart and you're done. I want to be on my feet, just perfectly mobile and strong until I'm 70, 80 years old. So what I personally do to build my cardiovascular system from a very strong base that I already have from all of my training is going to be giant sets. And the way I do that is I'm going to pick movements that I'm just going to superset with no breaks. And that's already challenging when you do an upper body movement. When you do a lower body movement, it's much tougher. For example, today I'm going to superset some stiff leg deadlifts and some rows. This is a superset that I wouldn't recommend for 99% of people because of how demanding it is on the lower back and cardiovascular system, but I can handle it. And that allows me to keep my cardio very high. And in a sense, what I've done is, instead of having my cardio outside of the training, I took it and put it inside of the training. And on top of that, I'm saving time because the giant set that I'm doing for the cardio by itself saves time because I don't have to have separate sets for every single movement. So this is my approach to that. Is it something I recommend for everyone? No. And I especially don't recommend people only do their cardio with their weight training. But as I said, semantics are important. And I truly think that most people cannot separate in their mind the practice of cardio to what the application of cardio is. If you do heavy squats for high reps, if you do heavy deadlifts for moderately high reps, you're doing cardio. The intensity at which your heart has to pump blood and your lungs has to get some oxygen in the bloodstream when you do those heavy movements is high intensity cardio. And it's very compressed in time. It's a lot of bang for your bucks in a sense. You're getting a lot. And that can by itself be very good cardio for the health of your heart. But if that doesn't suffice, I'll make a video so that you can actually get to those levels, because I know some people just cannot do high rep squats because they get completely winded. So I'm going to help you with that. And outside of that, as I've already said, don't let this mindset push you into a cardio weight training only. You need to also, in my opinion, do something on the side. So if you really like swimming, if you really like hiking, find something that you can go out there and apply that cardiovascular endurance to. You can use it to build, but realize also that specificity is going to be very important. And between doing sprints or training yourself at being very capable at high rep squats, the one that is going to carry over to your ability to stay fresh and be able to breathe and send oxygen to the muscles when you do heavy squats is going to be the first one. Same logic, if you are someone who is an athlete and you build your cardiovascular endurance, if you do it with heavy squats, you understand it doesn't apply as well to the specificity of running. Even though you're using the same heart and the same lungs to breathe and to move the body, you're moving the body in a different way, and those are different cardiovascular demands. That's my experience as someone who has been on both sides of the spectrum, of someone who was only an athlete, quote unquote, and now someone who's only a bodybuilder. So I'm going to leave you with that. Hopefully that covers what a lot of people wanted to know about my approach to cardio. Of course, it is critical because if there's one muscle in your body that you want to be strong for as long as possible, it's your heart. You don't want to be the guy who can lift very heavy but who gets winded climbing up the stairs, but that's also going to be correlated with how much fat you carry on your frame. You need to keep everything healthy here because life exists outside of the gym, and even if it didn't, by being limited by your cardiovascular system, is going to also hurt your hypertrophy gains inside the gym. So I'm going to leave you with that. Any questions in the comments, I will answer. Have a good day.